In the immortal words of the great confused one,
welcome to that Groovy Scoobcast,
your go-to audio hub for all things Scooby-Doo. Thank you for joining us again today on that Groovy Scoobcast. We're going to begin talking about a new series called The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo.
And if you're listening to this podcast on the day it comes out, happy Friday the 13th.
How fitting. This is the first series where we didn't randomize the episodes.
Yep.
It's actually a plot-driven series, apart from, the other series we've been watching before, which are very episodic. So we didn't randomize them. I think it's going to be an interesting time reviewing these episodes because we actually have to pay attention to what we saw before, I think.
We're going to have to rewatch every episode.
Basically. Well, before we dive into the Scooby-Doo review, we're going to start off with our usual Mystery Machine match. Shannon, are you feeling better about this week?
Possibly.
Possibly?
I think I might have a fighting chance.
Well, let's put that to the test. Shannon, as always, you can go first.
Yes or no? Art Johnson was the voice of Scooby-Doo in most of the shows.
False.
Do you know who it was?
I believe a majority of the time it would have been Don Messick.
Good job, yeah.
All right, here's your first question. What state is Scooby-Dum from? Tennessee or Georgia?
Tennessee?
Actually, it's Georgia. Yeah.
I don't like him, so I don't know. You're definitely going to get this one. If you don't, I'm going to have to fire you.
Oh, shit. Okay, let's see what it is.
What Harlem basketball team appears in the new Scooby-Doo movies?
I wonder. Is it maybe the Harlem Pistons or something? I'm kidding. It's the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yep.
Don't give me that face. If you could have seen the face she just made to me, guys, oh my gosh.
He was fired.
I was basically fired.
I was going to need to find a new Scooby expert for this because it was game over.
Basically. All right, Shannon, here's your second question. What did Velma sometimes ride on in a pup named Scooby-Doo? Roller skates or a skateboard?
A skateboard? You
are right. It was a skateboard.
Because my initial thought before you gave me the options was a moped. So I was like, I know it's not roller skates.
Okay, Shannon, what's your last question?
The ghost of which ancient Chinese warlord scares the gang? Zen Tu or Zen Po?
It's, I think, actually pronounced Zen Tuo.
Okay. Zen Tuo
is my final answer.
You're right.
Okay, here's your last question. The flying saucer the aliens use in Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders is actually what?
I don't remember.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie,
yeah.
honestly. I don't even remember.
I love that movie, but the most I can think of is a pie tin. And I know that's not it.
Well, it was
make it.
It was an actual facility thing, and it was flying. So there's my hint for you.
It was a building?
No, it wasn't a building, but it was flying.
A spaceship.
They were inside it. Yeah, they're talking about the spaceship, what they called the flying saucer.
Okay.
It was actually something flying, and at one point Scooby and Shaggy were in it. So what was it?
A plane?
It was a helicopter. But I'm going to give it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm far enough behind. You can give me that.
Yeah. So this week on the Mystery Machine match, I finish with 16 points and Shannon finishes with 12.
Woohoo!
So it looks like I've gained 1 point above you in terms of the lead.
Yeah.
But I firmly believe you're going to get there one day.
Maybe in 4 seasons.
Okay. Well, are you ready to start discussing To All the Ghouls I've Loved Before?
Yes.
All right. I did notice when I was editing last week's episode that we forgot to mention how you can watch this episode that we're reviewing today.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so if you want to pause this podcast episode and go and watch it, you can watch it on the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo DVD set. You can also find this first episode on iTunes, Amazon, and the free Microsoft app. So, there you go. So what were your initial thoughts on the episode, Shannon? I know that you said you really liked it, but you want to explain why?
So this is the first Scooby-Doo show that we get a relative plot.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how it's going to go and what they're gonna do. I don't like Flim Flam. I already know that. He has replaced my hatred for Scrappy.
That is a common opinion on this series. Do you know, like, the history of the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, like, in the context of the franchise?
Not at all.
Well, it's actually considered one of the black sheep in the series.
I could see that.
Unfortunately, in the 1980s, a lot of, like, parent and Christian groups were, like, really against this series because of the really dark themes that were being introduced to the Scooby-Doo cartoon. One expose that I actually watched on YouTube, it was called The Deception of a Generation. It was hosted by, I think it's called The Eagle's Nest, by a man named Gary Greenwald with guest host Phil Phillips. And they basically talk about how the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo is corrupting children with ideas of the occult and Satanism and witchcraft and things like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's so obnoxious. I watched the entire expose. It was about an hour and 45 minutes. And it just amazes me how they're just pulling at straws to make these connections that aren't there. So I'm actually going to insert a clip from this expose that the listeners can listen to, and that I can also get your opinion on it as well.
Okay.
Now, here's Gary Greenwald.
Hello, I'm Gary Greenwald, and over the past several years, the Eagle's Nest Ministries has exposed certain things like rock and roll music, Dungeons and Dragons, marijuana, and even the New Age movement, and now we feel there's another attack upon our society. If I say something like wicked witches and demon clouds and spell books and even the zone of eternal evil, what comes to mind? What do you think of? Do you think of a coven of witches or a seance? Watch now.
Wicked witches? Demon clouds? Where do we start, Mr. Van Ghoul?
You start by getting that spell book before those foolish witches destroy the world.
We've got some witches to splat.
You coming with us, Mr. V? I'm afraid I cannot.
Like we're not into witches either, sir. We'll stick with you.
If you wish, I'm going to hunt down that demon mist in the zone of eternal evil where the darkest spirits are trapped.
Like on second thought, send us a postcard.
So long.
Good luck with the mist, Mr. V.
If they don't recover that book, no amount of luck will save us. Oh, powers locked within this stone, transport me now to the evil zone. I hope I find that mist.
You know, you've been watching a Scooby-Doo cartoon, and it's amazing to me to see what's being brought forth in a cartoon. We've seen spell books, occultic amulets, we saw a crystal ball, astral projection to the evil zone, all of this in a children's cartoon. Now, I've got a guest today. His name is Phil Phillips. He's from Texas. He has been involved in missions work in his life, and he has now felt called to study the effects of cartoons and children's toys and even TV programs upon our children today. And I'd like to introduce a young man. And Phil, God bless you, and it's good to see you today.
It's a pleasure being here today, Gary.
Now, Phil, I'll tell you what, 14 years ago, Scooby-Doo was a lot different than what we see today. And I could hardly recognize it. Can you tell me what's going on in this cartoon?
Yes, there's a vast movement toward the occult within the cartoon and toy industry. Most people don't realize that 80% of all cartoons deal directly with the occult, and 40% of the toys on the market have occultic influence, and these are the most popular.
And these toys are actually a mirror of the cartoons, is that correct?
Right, they're released together. It's a form of marketing where the toys and the cartoons are released together to create this popularity for the toys.
Now, you have a concern, I know, that all of this is affecting our youth, and I wanted to know, do you feel that there are a lot of children that are being influenced by the cartoons they watch?
Oh yes, take for instance a cartoon like He-Man and Masters of the Universe. It can be seen as many as 31 times a week in an area, with a viewing audience as much as 16 million children each time it's aired. And so we're seeing a vast effect on the whole United States and other countries around the world through these cartoons and toys.
Millions of children now watching occultic cartoons and then going out and buying occultic toys. Now, could we say that there is witchcraft and occultic practices that are actually being portrayed in these cartoons?
Oh yes, the witchcraft and occult practices are not make-believe. They're taken from actual witchcraft, actual pagan religions, levitation, mind control, astral projection, and other forms of witchcraft ceremonies are portrayed within the cartoons.
All of these things are portrayed in the cartoons?
Yes, very much so.
Well, then we could suspect that there's some kind of a spiritual force behind these things to program our children.
Oh yes, the children receive this in a very different light than we do.
Well, Lynn, before we talk about that, let's go into another Scooby-Doo cartoon and let's see some of the occultic and witchcraft influences that are very blatant in this cartoon. Let's go to Scooby-Doo again here.
Okay.
We meet again, Vincent Van Ghoul.
Marcella! So you're the evil mist. But how did you wind up in the zone?
Oh, I was swept here by a spectral wind after I escaped your chest of demons.
From one trap to the next. You never were terribly clever, were you, Marcella?
Oh, yes, Van Ghoul. While you rot here, my sister witches will set me free at last to haunt the heavens and the... In a short while, Vincent, my loyal sisters will rescue me from this zone.
I wouldn't count on those 3 witches if I were you, Marcella.
Oh, I do appreciate your concern, but with the Book of Spells, they can't fail. Once they reach Stonehenge and make a brew, they'll chant Spell 13.
Which will set you free.
Precisely. And I'm afraid you can't follow me. At least not without your lovely necklace. Get used to Mr. Van Ghoul, I'd think. He'll be staying here quite a while.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! We made it, sisters! Stonehenge! Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, now let's get Spell 13. Glim! They're about to start their spell.
I can hardly believe what I'm seeing here. Now, we're looking at occultic things. We're seeing things like the chest of demons and witches and Stonehenge and occultic Spell 13. I mean, we're talking about satanic things here. Now, Phil, it's becoming obvious to me what's going on, and I wonder...
So, what were your opinions on that?
First off, no. As a kid that grew up watching Charmed and Star Trek, which are, occulty and space and all that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it doesn't change your... It doesn't make you want to join a cult and, kill animals and do it's...
I'm not going in my backyard and sacrificing a cat and...
Because Scooby-Doo had a spell book.
Yeah. The same expose actually goes on to talk about cartoons like He-Man, Thundercats, a cartoon rendition of Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
But, like I said, they're just pulling to try and find connections that I just really think are exaggerated. It's amazing for me to think of how these 2 men are just talking about this cartoon in this way.
Well, and I know that there are certain, Catholic and Christian groups that won't let you watch 90% of the Disney movies and stuff like that because it's gonna shape your mind.
It's introducing magic and stuff like that.
So
seeing magic in a movie is not gonna make me want to delve into witchcraft.
No, not at all. So I mean, I know it's out there, but hearing people actually talk about it in a a very serious manner, it's so weird.
And I don't exactly know what's going on in the episode that they were talking about from the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. But, I watched this series maybe 8 years ago, maybe 10. So I don't really remember it. But I can't imagine that it goes so dark as to introduce these ideas to children as if they're trying to corrupt them.
No, I don't see that at all.
But anyway, we're going to start talking about the one episode we did watch. Let's see what Scoobypedia has to say about this episode. Forced to land their plane near a village of werewolves, Shaggy and Scooby are tricked into opening the chest of demons and releasing 13 dangerous ghosts.
I mean, I guess that is what happens, but I don't know. I feel like that's very, like...
simplified.
Yeah. The show opens with Vincent talking to his crystal ball, and he mentions that, you know, the chest is going to open, and he calls them Scooby-Doo's 13 ghosts, I think, even.
Yeah.
So he talks all the time about how he's a mystic and he knows everything. And
yeah.
I mean, the show opens up with him predicting what's about to happen. Spoiler
he's
alert.
seeing it in a crystal ball.
Yeah. And so I get, like, when you see it, you know it can't be stopped.
Because, like, it's the future. It's inevitable.
Yeah, it's going to happen. But, like, he could have tried a little bit harder.
To give a little context, Vincent Van Ghoul, he's a warlock that's going to guide the gang throughout this series. He's actually voiced by actor Vincent Price.
Oh.
He's actually drawn to even look like him, which I
Okay.
thought was really interesting. But he looks, like, really realistic.
He's
like,
a lot scarier than, like, the rest of them.
the shading and everything that goes into all the wrinkles and stuff on his face, and they made him look pretty realistic as compared to the Scooby-Doo gang.
And, like, no offense to Vincent Price, but he also kind of looks like an 80s supervillain. So I really thought he was going to be a bad guy.
The way he's dressed and everything.
Yeah, the way he talks, the way he dresses, everything about him really makes you think he's going to be a bad guy.
Yeah. And I think it also comes down to the style, too.
Yeah.
You know, one of my first notes for this episode was the fact that the artwork is, for the most part, amazing. I love the background artwork, the colors, the shading. It really sets the tone that this is going to be a darker version of Scooby-Doo than what we've seen before.
Definitely.
And then to have a little bit more of lightheartedness in this episode, they start showing the temple that we're going to be focused on in this episode. The temple is in the Himalayan mountains, and we go inside and we're introduced to the first of the two ghosts that are trying to open the chest of demons. There's Bogle, who's the short, chubbier looking ghost, and then there's Weird, who is skinnier, a little lankier with a crazy hat.
We find out it's a hat.
It's a hat, yes. But we see Bogle showering, which, why
Weird.
are ghosts showering?
Like, that's a little odd. But he gets so scared when he hears a noise.
Yeah.
And then he runs to Weird, who's
Sleeping in a coffin. Okay.
and it starts banging on it, and he's all terrified because he hears this noise.
Yeah.
And, like, the only thing I could think of is, like, that would 100% be me as a ghost.
Guarding the chest of demons.
Well, like, still scared of every noise I hear.
Yeah.
Like, I'm dead, but I'm still terrified.
Right. Well, what happens is that Bogle wakes up Weird, and Weird explains to him that the chest of demons is reacting to the fact that there are mortals that are coming to the temple soon. Mm-hmm. And that they are going to be the ones that are going to open the chest. Which kind of goes back to the idea that Vincent was predicting this.
Yeah.
So, like, it's making it set up as if it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to happen. Because they really rudely talk about Scooby and Shaggy being stupid in this episode.
Because he's like, well, how do we know that these are the people that are going to open the chest? And Weird's response is, because they're the stupidest humans on Earth.
And I'm just like, okay, that's rude.
Yeah.
You don't even know them, but okay.
But it doesn't help, because then the very first time we see them, it really goes to show that, like, they are not that intelligent in this series.
Yeah. So after he explains that there are mortals coming to see the chest, he envisions Scooby, Shaggy, Daphne, and Scrappy, still the four main characters. We don't have Fred and Velma in this series again.
Yeah.
So they're in the flying mystery machine.
Which is cool.
It's a plane. Who owns this plane? Probably Daphne.
Yeah.
She's rich.
Yeah.
But Shaggy's piloting it. That bothered me a little bit.
Well, and it didn't help that they're on their way, or we're supposed to be on their way, to Hawaii.
Yeah, they're going to Honolulu.
And Shaggy's flying, and he's like, guys, look at all these sand dunes. And Daphne looks out the window and is like, no, that's snow.
So she comes up to see Scooby and Shaggy in the cockpit, and she's like, Scooby, you're in charge of navigation.
Why?
And it turns out Scooby didn't get a map to Honolulu. He got a map to the Himalayas.
Dogs can't read. Like
Scooby can read.
Apparently not very well.
But yeah, so Daphne realizes that we're basically on the other side of the world of where we're supposed to be. And something that really caught you off guard was her new look.
Yeah, her hair.
And her outfit, generally. Yeah. She's got a whole makeover. And I think it comes down to the fact that this is in the 80s now. You know, bigger hair, in different kind of outfits. Like what she was wearing in the classic cartoons aren't really going to be any more appropriate now. Shaggy's timeless. Like what he's wearing can be worn anytime.
He switched from a green shirt to a red shirt.
Whoa.
Like.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Didn't he? I didn't even realize that. I didn't even catch that, actually. Yeah, he changes into a red shirt and jeans, I think.
It took him a decade, but he finally changed his clothes.
But, again, it's timeless.
Yeah.
You can wear a red shirt and jeans, and you can be put in any time period.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Daphne, on the other hand, her style
was very 70s.
Exactly. And it looks like they really did update her for this cartoon.
And I like it.
I think it's fine.
Her hair looks cool. Like, she can pull that off, so all the more power to her.
So Weird decides that in order to force the gang to come to the temple, he shoots a beam out of his hat. He whips up some black magic, and it shoots a beam out the window into the sky, and it destroys their fuel cap. So they run out of gas in engine 1 or something like that.
Terrorism.
So, common theme, Bogle and Weird are terrorists.
That's fair.
That's what they were before they died.
And I have, like, a lot of quick notes from that scene.
Okay.
Because my first reaction was, that's not trying to force them down, that's trying to kill them.
Yeah. What if they weren't able to land it like that? Like emergency landing.
And I mean, at one point when it's landing, towards the end of the scene, Daphne flat out says, like, the brakes aren't working on the ice. Like, these ghosts did not think this through.
Right. What if they died? Then you'd be out of a set of mortals that were going to open the chest.
Exactly. Now you got a whole bunch of ghosts that can't do anything for you.
They're lucky that the future can't be changed.
Yes.
Because otherwise they would have died.
So while they're still flying in the air and, like, they're starting to crash, Scooby starts eating Shaggy's hair.
Right. Shaggy says that Daphne says that we lost engine 1.
Yep.
Shaggy's trying to save it, and then he realizes that we lost engine 2. Scooby's just gnawing at his hair for reasons. Leaves him a mohawk, which looked pretty nice. It grew back pretty quick.
Very quickly.
I liked right after they lost engine 2, Shaggy's like, okay, now is the time to panic. And Scooby and Shaggy just look at each other and they just calmly nod.
And then they panic.
You were having issues with them deploying their parachutes.
Yes. So I've never been skydiving, but I know that you can't just pull it right away.
Like in the door going out of the plane.
First off, you don't ever pull a parachute inside the plane.
Right.
Which happens twice. And second, you have to fall for a while and then pull the parachute, which is why I haven't been parachuting, because I can't just fall.
Yeah.
So Scooby pulls his parachute.
Yeah. Which
turns out to not be a parachute, but just an inflatable ducky.
Yeah, it's a huge rubber ducky balloon.
That's not going to save you. Then he's panicking because it's trying to pull him back, which that's going to happen. You pulled it inside the plane. So then he grabs a hold of Shaggy, which, okay, but then he pulls Shaggy's parachute.
Again, inside the plane.
So I'm, like, pissed at this point. Obviously, I'm not freaking out. It's a cartoon. I know, like, whatever happens, happens. But, like, I was mad. I'm like, you don't do that. That's not how this thing works.
Scooby does not understand parachutes.
Why would you give him a parachute?
Meanwhile, while all that nonsense is happening in the sky, we go to the village, the Himalayan village, which, for one, is very white. Just gonna throw it out there. It looks like they're in, like, a small German village.
Yeah.
Reality check, the Himalayas are in Asia.
Well, Flim Flam is Asian.
Is he? Because there's a lot of scenes. This is something I actually wrote down throughout the episode. His skin color changes a lot.
Yeah.
It goes dark. It goes light. Sometimes he's got really dark skin, which, yeah, you would think, yeah, he's Asian or something like that. And then there's other times where he's as pale as Shaggy. Explain that, animators.
I don't know.
Anyway, we're in the village now. All the village people are chasing after Flim Flam because he's a con artist. He's probably about 12 years old, I would estimate. And he gets stopped by the mayor and other, I'm assuming they're like village police.
Okay.
And that's when he explains to them in a con artist fashion that the town has bad luck.
This town's got trouble with a capital T, and that rhymes with B, and that stands for bad luck.
Which convinces the mayor to listen.
I mean, right after that, a plane nearly crashes into the middle of the town.
Terrorism.
So that's fair to believe that your town has some bad luck.
He explains to them that this vial that he calls Lotsa Luck Joy Juice
is a spell remover, curse remover, rocket fuel, and a darn good dandruff remover.
Whoa. That's a lot of purposes. So that's when the plane starts coming into town, and Flim Flam looks at the mayor, and he's like, haha, I was right, bad luck. So he grabs onto...
I think it's the duck.
Yeah. So they can't land the plane right in the village because, for one,
Terrorism.
Two, the brakes don't work on the ice. So they have to keep going through the village. For one, I'm surprised no buildings were destroyed. Then Flim Flam grabs onto the rubber ducky, which is trailing behind the plane, and he flies away. He's like, bye, guys. And they end up crashing into some cows, which I'm just going to assume Scrappy hates cows because he takes over the plane at that point.
Which, to backtrack, Scrappy is so calm during that entire thing.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I got the plane. I got that. Like, we're good.
Yeah, evidently everyone in this group is just capable of flying planes.
Well, and we've seen Scrappy pull out some, like, good tricks and, like...
resourcefulness.
Yeah, like, he is resourceful.
Yeah.
Still don't love him, but he is resourceful sometimes. And we've seen that. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he knows how to fly a plane doesn't surprise me, but it does, because he's a puppy.
Right.
But he's just very calm.
Yeah. They end up landing right outside the temple, which is right outside of the village.
Yeah.
There, they meet Flim Flam. Flim Flam transforms one of his bottles of the Lotsa Luck Joy Juice into a bouquet of flowers that he gives to Daphne. Very polite.
It's the first nice thing we've seen, like, towards Daphne in quite some time.
Right, because Scrappy and the rest of the group hates her. I swear. We'll get into that in a little bit. But that's when one of the village police comes and arrests them for crashing in a no crashing zone, which I would hope is everywhere.
Right, everywhere except for a plane landing strip.
And aiding and abetting a...
fast-talking fugitive.
Is that what he called him?
Which, like, they could have arrested them for terrorism.
Yeah.
But it was crashing in a no-crashing zone. So that's just, like, probably, like, $100 fine. Honestly, you almost killed our entire town.
$100 fine for crashing a plane in a village?
I mean, it's like parking in a no-parking zone. Like, that's how
you crashed a plane in a village.
They literally word it like you're crashing in a non-crashing zone.
Yeah.
So my first thought was parking in a no-parking spot. Like, it's like $100 fine, maybe a few points on your license. Like, it doesn't really sound like... You were almost a terrorist, but we're going to let that slide.
Right.
We're going to get you for aiding and abetting a fugitive, not the terrorism. You could have gotten them for terrorism and for aiding and abetting. Like, that's life in prison.
They end up having to go to court, which I had to make a note. Why are they in an American-style court in Asia?
Because we're American and we're not going to understand anything else.
And not only that, the judge's name is Burgermeister, which gets a good gag with Scooby and Shaggy. And the Burgermeister just makes me think again, like, this is like European-style village, which, again, does not make sense. Meanwhile, while they're in the court, Weird and Bogle, back at the temple, drag the plane into the temple.
Which, how?
How? The doors are not big enough to allow that. You said something about, like...
Well, I thought because sometimes, like, depending on the show or whatever that you're watching, ghosts can have, you know, like supernatural powers. And so sometimes they can turn other things transparent, like slide them through the doors and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe they had that power too. Because, you know, ghosts can travel through things. So sometimes they can turn other things into that as well.
It's funny that you mentioned transparent. Something I noticed throughout the episode that I was kind of bothered by in terms of the animation and the artwork. Sometimes you can see through Weird and Bogle, and sometimes you can't.
Yeah, I noticed that.
They're kind of like a creamy yellow color, and when we first meet them, they're a little bit see-through. Sometimes they're really see-through, like it's kind of hard to see them on top of the artwork, and then there's other times where they're just full opacity.
I think it just depends on how much they wanted to color them in at the time.
They just were not in the mood to be consistent.
I mean, we've had that conversation where, you know, God bless Scooby-Doo, but the artists didn't always have the time to make sure what they were doing was right.
Shout out to that Tumblr blog, Scooby-Doo Mistakes.
Yeah.
So the gang is told in court that they need to leave the village by tomorrow. They're not going to get charged for anything. Terrorism.
Aiding and abetting.
So they all have to leave town. I'm assuming Flim Flam is included. They decide to go get their plane. They go back to the temple and find that it's gone. But they can see the tracks of the plane being dragged into the temple. So They know it's in the temple. They try to open the doors, but it turns out, for some reason, Bogle locked the doors.
Because he's stupid.
So just to clarify, guys, Bogle is the stupid one between the two ghosts. He's the one that has no common sense. So he locked the door, and now they're not able to unlock it. They're having trouble getting the latch to unlock. So the gang doesn't get in to find the plane, or to the ghost motive, open the chest.
Yeah.
So Flim Flam says that he knows someone that can explain everything about the temple and how to get them inside.
Which I don't talk about the artwork that often. That's more
That's more like me.
Yeah. But he looked so disgusting when he was talking about the mystic that he knew.
Like a little goblin.
He's like, "Hey guys, I know a mystic." Like, it was so disgusting.
That's a screenshot will be coming on Twitter, guys.
It was horrible. I'm like, what?
His hands were
cripply, like he morphed into something.
Something I will say right now, because I know I didn't write it down. I noticed it in the second time that we watched the episode. Sometimes the characters, not the main gang, but other characters, sometimes they are more realistic in terms of like proportions and appearance, and other times they have 4 fingers.
Oh, I don't know if I noticed that.
Later on in the episode, Daphne's talking to the mayor again, and the mayor like holds out his hands, and I noticed that he had his thumbs and 3 fingers.
Oh.
Yeah. That was something I noticed. Really subtle, but...
Good job, artists.
Yeah.
So they then go down to the bar.
In the village.
To go see this mystic that Flim Flam knows.
Yes.
Which, so first off, Flim Flam, I don't know if he's supposed to be like a native of the Himalayas and he just travels around town to town to like sell his Lotsa Luck Joy Juice. Mm-hmm. But he seems to be like very familiar with the village. He knows where the bar is. He knows a mystic there. I'm assuming him and Vincent know each other well.
Maybe Vincent adopted him.
I doubt that.
Where are his parents then?
Maybe he's an orphan.
Okay.
I don't know. He walks into the bar and everyone dead stops, like a Western movie.
Yeah.
Like everyone dead stops what they're doing. And Flim Flam is so...
casual.
Yeah.
He's like, hey guys.
No. He says, hi, you crazy nuts, you.
It's because he knows that everyone hates him. Like, con artists aren't dumb.
No.
They know when people are fed up with their shenanigans. So everyone in the bar just, like, stops and looks at them. Something I noticed in the bar, and you noticed it too, like the fog or smoke
it was
or
very
something that's
smoky,
going on
yeah.
in this bar. Like, this must have been before they outlawed smoking inside restaurants or something.
I'm assuming, yeah.
So they go to the back of the bar, and they're, like, surrounded by curtains everywhere. It's all mysterious. And Flim Flam is like, and now to introduce you to the one, the only, Vincent Van Ghoul. He pulls the curtain, and Vincent Van Ghoul is standing over a cauldron, and he looks all sinister. And he's like, What do you want? I'm in the middle of making supper.
And he starts to go off.
I'm sorry. When that happened, I was actually laughing during the episode.
And so he starts to go off on Flim Flam about it. Vincent does. Flim Flam responds with, hey, I've got some live ones here.
Yeah.
And my first response was, does he often bring him dead things?
I was actually looking at it as maybe Vincent is also a con artist.
Or, because he predicted it, he's saying, I've got some live people here that can open the chest. I didn't realize that till just now.
Oh my god. Vincent, Flim Flam, Bogle, and Weird are all in on it.
Well, I don't necessarily know that, but because we said Flim Flam knows Vincent very well.
Yes.
And Vincent, at the beginning of the show, said Scooby-Doo's gonna open the chest.
And he makes no effort to, say, Scooby, leave the village. Don't come back.
He does now try to get them out of the village.
Yeah, he does, actually.
But so I didn't think about that. He does try to get them out of the village, but that's because of the werewolves.
Yes.
But that could just be, a hidden agenda. Get the fuck out of here. You're gonna open the chest.
To explain the werewolf point. So, Vincent explains that the town is actually cursed. When the full moon comes out that night, everyone in the village, except Vincent Van Ghoul and Flim Flam, evidently, turn into werewolves.
Yeah.
Scary werewolves. They were terrifying.
And we also find out towards the end of the werewolf part, even, the cows turn into werewolves.
Yes. Anything that is alive in this village become werewolves. To backtrack a little bit, the fact that Vincent was making his supper in the bar, for some reason makes me think he lives in the bar.
Well, and, okay, so because of what we just discovered, what if, because sometimes with con artists, they'll send somebody in a month or two ahead of time to establish a ground, and then Flim Flam will come in and try to sell the stuff, and Vincent can vouch for it, and because everybody likes Vincent, they're oh, okay, I'll try this Lotsa Luck Joy Juice.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe that's what they did. So he came in, maybe he works for the bar, or maybe he's living in the bar, and he's part of Flim Flam's little con artistry. And so because he predicted this, then Flim Flam's hey, I got the live ones here. Hey, live people.
Okay, so it's one of two theories, evidently. One theory is that Vincent is also a con artist.
Yeah.
He's part of Flim Flam's shenanigans. My theory is that Flim Flam, Vincent Van Ghoul, Weird, and Bogle are all in on trying to get the Chest of Demons opened.
Okay.
We'll see how this pans out over the course of the series, but those are the working theories right now.
All right.
So Vincent is explaining to the gang over the crystal ball at the table that the town is cursed, everyone turns into werewolves. The mayor, and I'm assuming his wife or something, the two are listening in. They're overhearing their conversation and realizes that now the gang knows their secret. And for some reason, that means that they're not allowed to leave.
Well, and that was my thing. If somebody knows your secret, let them get out of town.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, they use wolfsbane to poison Daphne so that now she turns into a werewolf.
Which is something that you noticed when we were watching the episode about the wolfbane.
Yeah.
Because you established, and I even looked up just to make sure, wolfbane's supposed to kill werewolves. It's not supposed to create them.
And I'm sorry, because I always say, I dabble with the supernatural. I love that.
Do you?
I eat that shit up. I love it.
Are you a witch?
Yes. So,
Spoiler. It is now official, guys. Shannon is a witch.
But, I mean, I love it. I think it's so interesting. So when they said, oh, she's drinking wolfsbane, she's going to turn into a werewolf. No. And if they're drinking wolfsbane, you're either going to die or become a very, very weak werewolf.
Yeah.
So it was odd to me.
Mm-hmm. How they get her to drink it is the gang comes out and they all get sat down at this table. Yeah, all the village people are like, nope, you got to sit down. You got to watch this. So they get to watch
My
vampire
favorite thing ever
sing a song called To All the Ghouls I've Loved Before. I hated it.
I thought it was amazing.
We were on the very opposite opinions with this performance.
I think that performance right there, if they had just released that portion, It would have been a whole box of Scooby snacks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Just that.
Just that
On
portion.
the Scooby Snack-O-Meter, it would have got a whole box.
A whole box.
Okay. It's going to be on iTunes soon.
If they have it as a ringtone, I'm going to find it.
Right. The mayor brings Daphne the Wolfbane drink. She drinks it, and Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy, they all, I guess in this universe, Wolfbane works as to where it's supposed to create the werewolves, because they all have the common sense that it does. Because then they're like, wait, isn't Wolfbane the thing that creates werewolves? And Daphne's like, don't be silly. That was just a myth or something like that. Mm-hmm. They notice right behind her, out the window, big full moon.
Surprise!
So she drinks it, and suddenly everyone turns into werewolves. Terrifying transformation again. Daphne and the rest of the village are just... They're some of the scariest werewolves I've seen in this series. In this franchise.
The actual transformation is scary, and it is one of, like, the... Not realist, but, like, scariest transformations we've seen.
I thought it was actually a really well animated and well portrayed sequence of events.
Yeah, like, just from Shaggy grabbing Daphne's hand and saying, let's get out of here, and it, like... starting to grow fur. Mm-hmm. He lets go. She, her face gets longer. The teeth pop out. Like, it's just a very good transformation.
Mm-hmm. So, Scrappy, Shaggy, Scooby, and Flim Flam. I keep forgetting to mention Flim Flam because I don't care about him.
I don't have anything invested in him.
The four are, like, backed up against the front door with all of the werewolves surrounding them.
And Scrappy doesn't really even, like, think about werewolves. Mm-hmm. It's not, I don't want to say he doesn't see the werewolves, because obviously he does, but he just genuinely thinks that Daphne's in a bad mood.
Yeah, so what happens is they get outside, they find this carriage, and they're like, sir, take us to Honolulu.
He's like, let's ditch Daphne. I just want to go to Hawaii.
They realize that the carriage driver is also a werewolf, so they panic.
But the horses weren't.
You're right.
So just the fucking cows?
Maybe the carriage driver is from the village, but the horses are from somewhere else.
Okay.
Like, maybe you have to be born in this village.
Okay.
They import their horses.
That's fair.
So they panic, and they hop in a sewer. And Daphne manages to get into the sewer in the form of a werewolf before they're able to close the sewer. So they're alone down underneath the road with Daphne, who's about to eat their faces off. And that's when Scrappy says, gee, Daphne, you're sure in a lousy mood.
Well, and I'm not sure if it was when she first transformed, but Shaggy is even like, Daphne, we'll get you this,
we'll get
and
you
this.
help. We'll take you home.
Yeah.
We'll make you feel better.
And then she puts her claw out, and he goes, we'll get you a manicure.
Speaking of which, you just got one.
Yeah.
So that's when Flim Flam pulls out the Lotsa Luck Joy Juice.
Where? I mentioned that. Where did he get it?
Oh, maybe just his pocket?
But he pulls out a whole bunch more.
Later on, yeah, you're right.
Like, the whole concept throughout...
It's cartoon physics. Like, everyone just carries things inside their skin or something.
But the concept of, like, never-ending pockets or bags... or, like, things that you can pull out of the mystery machine is just never ending.
It doesn't end with the mystery machine. Like, this is just a common thing in the cartoon world that is just normal.
So there you go. Okay, so to Gary Greenwald, you're right. They're all wizards.
Yep, everyone. Scooby's a wizard. Scrappy's a wizard. Everyone's a wizard.
Yep.
Yep. So it turns out the Lotsa Luck Joy Juice actually works. He pours it on Daphne, and she transforms back into her normal self.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, great convenience right there.
And so now we know that the Lotsa Luck Joy Juice works.
Right, so they have a way to fight the werewolves.
It really is magical.
It doesn't make them any less terrifying because they travel by sewer to get out of the village and to the temple. When they get to the temple, they find a big hole in the door. Basically, Weird and Bogle drilled a huge hole in the door because they couldn't unlock the door.
So Daphne's just like, hey, let's head in the hole and let's go in the temple. And Shaggy's response is, there's like a hole in your head, Daphne, if you think we're going in there.
Right. That's when Daphne responds with, well, A, you can either go in there, or B, you can stay out here with those guys. And she's pointing at werewolves that are charging towards the temple. And he's like, I'm going to choose C, none of the above. And then chooses A.
Yeah, then they run through the door.
They go in the door. Weird and Bogle, they make another really rude comment about Shaggy and Scooby being dumb. I don't exactly remember what they said. I just know they're being rude. I wrote it down. I noted another skin color change for Flim Flam.
Then he starts pouring all of the Lotsa Luck Joy Juice all over the other werewolves to cure them.
Yes.
So again, I mentioned, where did he get all of this Lotsa Luck Joy Juice?
Right. You know what? I'm thinking that maybe he... Oh, no. I'm really confused now. Because didn't he leave his cart of all of the joy juice in the middle of the village when he grabbed onto the rubber ducky balloon?
So that means like he has like a second cart in his shirt.
In his pocket or something. Huh. Well, anyway, he cures the entire village, and that's when they explain that they were all cursed because many years ago, the village trapped the 13 most terrifying ghosts on the face of the earth inside the chest of demons. So when they were being put in the chest, the ghosts and the demons, they laid that curse on them.
So it cuts to Shaggy and Scooby, and they end up in the scary dungeon part of the temple.
Vincent calls it the Crypt of Darkness.
Which is fair if you see what it looks like. They walk into a room and they're like, whoa, what's this?
It's a TV studio.
It's a TV studio for a show called Let's Make 'Em Squeal.
And it's their favorite show.
So fun fact for the day.
Their favorite show is Let's Make 'Em Squeal. Their favorite show changes all the time. It's never consistent.
I mean, mine does too, so it's okay.
So they're basically given this really nice looking car, but they have the opportunity to trade the car for one of 3 prizes.
A plane that they already own.
Yep, that's the flying mystery machine that they stole. A very fancy doghouse, which has its own factory installed fire hydrant.
Which Scooby is crying over because he wants it.
He wants it so bad.
If you can't make up your mind, try number 3. The box!
The box! Makes me think of that episode of Family Guy when they go to that real estate timeshare bit, and they can either have a free boat or the mystery box.
Dun, dun, dun.
So the two of them have to decide between one of these 3 options. Vincent is explaining to Daphne, Scrappy, and Flim Flam upstairs that the chest of demons is now in the crypt, and that if it's opened, it'll release the 13 ghosts, and that only an imbecile would open the chest.
And they go on for like 2 minutes. Like, only a real idiot would open it. Yeah, only a real bozo.
And then Daphne's like, that reminds me, where's Shaggy and Scooby? So
rude.
Rude as fuck. They race downstairs to try and find them. And right as they find them, Scooby opens the box.
Which is, I have a thing here. So they rush in, and Scrappy goes, Uncle Scooby, don't open the... And then he opens the box, and he goes, Never mind. So right then and there, I realized this season is a very important season.
Why?
It is where Scrappy is going to lose all of his faith in Scooby. He is now realizing that Scooby is not shit. He is a scared dog who doesn't know what he's doing, who opens a box of demons. And this is where he's like, you know, one day I'm going to sacrifice you.
In the 2002 Scooby-Doo movie. Maybe he learned about all these demons and everything that was going on in that movie from the chest of demons.
Yeah.
Maybe this is where he starts delving into this stuff. Maybe Gary Greenwald is right. Maybe this really is corrupting children.
It's corrupting Scrappy. This is where... So this is specifically right here, right in this moment, is where he is going to steal that witch's book. He's going to learn about all the demons, and he is going to sacrifice his uncle to become the all-powerful.
Yep. So the 13 ghosts are released. very intense scene. The music and the sound and the artwork that's going on all at once actually really, again, sets the mood of what's going on. This is no fun and games going on right now. A giant demonic head, like it
rolling
thing. It looks like a skull. It has 2 horns, and it like starts screaming, essentially.
Yeah.
Like you can hear all of the ghosts. It's like a amalgamation of all of the ghosts in one entity. Mm-hmm. And Weird and Bogle are so excited. They're like, they're going to love us. They're cheering our names. They're going to throw us a parade. And the entity like turns into like a wheel, and it starts spiraling out of the temple, and it runs them over. Because evidently they actually don't care about Weird and Bogle.
Well, and in the beginning, they mentioned that they hate Weird and Bogle.
Right, so I'm wondering why.
They probably have, like, my guess is that Weird and Bogle have had experiences with each individual 13 ghosts beforehand.
Yeah.
Maybe they were supposed to help do whatever the 13 ghosts were doing, and they just, fucked it up. And so the 13 ghosts got trapped in there, and they hate them.
Right. I'm just going to pause for 1 second and just say, in the style of Scooby Apocalypse calling Velma's brothers the 4, we're going to start calling these the 13.
Okay.
So the 13 are now outside of the temple. They go into the sky, and it explodes.
Like a firework.
Yeah. And then 13 little wisps fly off in their own little places, which, again, kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, this episode, in my opinion, really sets the tone of what's going to happen for this series. I'm actually really optimistic to see what this does.
Well, and I'd say, like, as a little kid watching that, it's not the Scooby-Doo that you're used to. It's a darker theme. It's ghosts exploding to every part of the planet.
Like, you really can't say that Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated is the first time they tried to go in a dark direction.
No, it's the first time they, like, actually super succeeded, I think, in my opinion, but definitely not the first time they tried.
We don't know exactly where this series is going just yet.
That's true.
I mean, it could go south real quick. I can see it. With Flim Flam, again, I'm not a fan of this character, but we'll see. So after they open the chest, that's when Vincent explains to Scooby and Shaggy that they are the only ones that are able to return the ghost to the chest because they're the ones that opened it. Is that a rule of the chest?
Possibly. Either that or Vincent's like, I've already done it once. Fuck you guys. You can do it now.
He's just not in the mood to do it again. He's like, this is your problem.
And take Flim Flam, too, because I don't fucking want him.
Well, he has to leave the village anyway. Court order.
Yeah.
Court order. So I like how Scrappy did not ask Daphne or Shaggy, who are the adults, if Flim Flam can come. Like, Flim Flam and Scrappy are already in the cockpit of the plane. And Scrappy's like, hey, Flim Flam's coming with us. And it's like, oh, glad you asked me.
Right.
That's fine. Just gonna steal this Himalayan 12-year-old.
Court ordered.
Court ordered. That's when Daphne said that the plane's out of gas, that they're out of luck.
So Flim Flam goes, oh, don't worry, I filled it up. And Daphne goes, with unleaded or regular? He goes, neither. I filled it with a few gallons of Lotsa Luck Joy Juice.
Oh, no, everyone says.
And they literally, my first thought was, oh, no, because, like, it's not going to do anything. Mm-hmm. But then you remember, it's also rocket fuel. Mm-hmm. So the plane, like, busts out the side of the
temple.
Terrorism.
Because the hole was already there. Because remember, the 13 destroyed that part of the wall. Like, the hole was already there. They just flew out the wall. So no terrorism.
No terrorism. Okay.
One note that I forgot to mention. Before they leave, Vincent says that if they need his help at all, that they can contact him. He hands Daphne a crystal ball, and he says, I'm in the yellow pages.
I want to know who put a mystic in the yellow pages.
What's he listed as?
A psychic.
Warlock?
Probably.
And my last note that I had, so they're flying off into the distance, and Scooby's evidently excited to capture these 13 ghosts because he's like, Scooby-Dooby-Doo! Well, I'm like, this is not a time to be happy, Scooby. But Weird and Bogle are sitting on the back of the plane, so evidently they're going with them.
Well, they're going to try and save the 13. Mm-hmm. But they also end by yelling, Aloha, which to me implies...
They're just going to Honolulu first.
Like, fuck the 13. I still need to go to Hawaii.
I didn't even think of that.
Like, they do it often. Mm-hmm. They did it when Daphne got, like, every chance they get to escape, they're like, yeah, we're just going to go to Hawaii.
They're in no mood for this nonsense. Like,
this
is not my problem. I wasn't supposed to be here.
No.
A ghost shot me out of the sky.
They were just like, I had this plan, Hawaii. I didn't want to be in the Himalayas.
How am I going to explain this to my work?
I only got a week's vacation. Right. I don't have time to chase these ghosts.
So how does this episode rate on the Scooby Snackometer for you?
I rated it an 8.
An 8? Wow. Okay.
I think that might be the highest I've gone.
It is. Explain.
I liked it.
Okay.
I hate Flim Flam, but I did genuinely like the show. It had a good plot. The animation wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. Besides, like, a missing finger here or there. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I thought there were good transformations. Like, from scene to scene, changes were good. They seemed to follow a plot line pretty decently.
Yeah.
It was good. I liked it.
Yeah. I actually gave it a 7. I was going to originally go with an 8, but a few things brought me down to a 7.
What specifically brought you down to a 7?
The vampire. No, but not just the vampire. Something I noted, despite the nostalgia, there were tracks from the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You cartoon playing in the background of this cartoon. And it just didn't fit. So, for instance, they're walking outside of the temple right after the 13 are released. And it's playing this, like, dramatic music from Scooby-Doo Where Are You, which would usually be heard, like, if they're looking for clues. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't make sense to me. Another thing that I marked it down for is I don't like Flim Flam either. I really don't think he's a necessary character for this show. It's interesting to see how his introduction to the group affects everybody else, especially Scrappy. Scrappy is now kind of on the back burner a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a little quieter. He doesn't talk as much.
He didn't try to fight anyone.
He didn't. You're right.
Like, on a normal Scrappy-Doo moment, the second that Judge said, you need to get out of town tonight, Scrappy would have been like, fuck you, let's fight.
Yeah.
And he, on this case, I don't think he had one line.
In the episode?
No, in the courtroom.
Oh, yeah. He didn't talk in the courtroom.
No, so, like, let alone did he not try to fight the McBurger guy. That's what I'm calling him.
Burgermeister.
The Burgermeister.
That's what his name was.
He didn't try to fight Burgermeister. He just sat there quietly.
Accepted his sentence.
Because he knew they were terrorists.
Yep. The fact that Flim Flam was introduced to the group made me do a little bit more research on, like, why he's in this story. I found a writer from the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. I found his blog online. And while he doesn't exactly love Scrappy, he hated Flim Flam. But he said that Flim Flam was most likely a product of focus groups and things like that that were more, like, executive influence, like, behind the scenes of the cartoon. They're thinking that introducing an actual child made it more identifiable with children.
Okay.
It makes sense, but I just don't like the character the way he's written. You know, they probably could have written him a lot better or just not included him at all.
He honestly could have just been some, like, homeless kid on the streets of the Himalayan town selling this joy juice. Mm-hmm. He could have helped save the day and then gone back to being his little self. Like, he didn't have to come. He could have just helped that one time. Because the only thing he's good for is the Lotsa Luck Joy Juice.
Yeah.
And I don't see that coming in, like, I don't see that coming up very often in the show.
Well, that's another thing, too, with the Lotsa Luck Joy Juice. When he talks about the Lotsa Luck Joy Juice, he breaks the fourth wall a little bit.
Oh,
like, he kind of addresses the audience a little bit. He's like, another satisfied customer, looking straight at the audience, which, again, I don't like for a Scooby-Doo cartoon. I think that's actually, like, in this writer's style. His name is Tom Ruger, but that's something else that I also didn't like, especially with his character, because I feel like the fourth wall breaking was exclusive to Flim Flam.
Yeah.
I don't think it really happened with any other character in the show.
No.
But yeah, I just think that he wasn't that necessary of a character.
And nobody really liked him all that much. Yeah.
Aside from that, though, I did enjoy the episode. I thought that it was a really well-written episode. I'm excited to see if this series is able to surprise me. So, yeah, I gave it a 7. And based on our 2 scores, the Scooby Snackometer officially rates this episode a 7.5.
Woohoo!
That is a substantially high rating so far for...
We've hated most of what we've watched.
We've felt indifferent for most of what we've watched. We hated the Dynamic Scooby-Doo affair.
Yeah. So, Derek, what's our fun fact?
Nothing super duper exciting today, but I'm going to assume that you don't know it. Did you know that Shaggy collects belt buckles?
No.
Yeah. In Those Meddling Kids, the behind the scenes look at Scooby-Doo, it was a little TV special that you can also find on the Scooby-Doo's Greatest Mysteries DVD or VHS tape. In between episodes, they show like little clips from this special. And in one clip, they were talking about Shaggy and like his upbringing, his childhood, and stuff like that. And then they explained that he has one of the world's largest belt buckle collections. And they say it in the special as like a joke, but if you look closely, he's wearing one in every episode.
I'm going to have to start paying attention to that.
It's not true.
Oh, that's really upsetting.
That's the joke, is that it's not real. Like, you're just going to start looking at Shaggy's crotch throughout the entire rest of this podcast.
I am now, too.
You're not going to be able to forget that.
So speaking of one of the world's largest collections, you've been adding a lot to your collection.
Yes, I have. I just wanted to let you guys know in case, you guys like to collect Scooby-Doo things, or if you're just a really big fan and want to pick these things up. A lot of stores have been coming out with new Scooby-Doo stuff recently. One type of memorabilia that I've been seeing like everywhere are socks. Socks are a really big thing, I feel like, for people our ages.
Yeah.
They're just a really big thing. And they have Scooby-Doo socks like everywhere. Notable places that I've seen those at are like Hot Topic, Spencer's, Urban Outfitters. You can even go on Walmart's website and you can find them there too. Another cool thing that Walmart actually just came out with was the Scooby-Doo Maskimals. You know what a Maskimal is, Shannon?
You showed me. I really want the Deadpool one.
They're basically like
a mask.
Large foam masks that you can wear for like a Halloween costume. The Maskimals are usually like just animals, so like pandas or other types of just normal animals, but they just came out with a line of like characters and they have a huge Scooby-Doo head. I just bought it. I'll be posting a picture of it soon, I'm sure. And then another really cool thing coming from Hot Topic and Spencer's are Scooby-Doo Backpacks. I am in love. I picked up one from Hot Topic that has like a starry background on it and it shows the gang in a mystery machine. And then the 2 that I got from Spencer's, one is like a full body Scooby. It's like a little furry a little bit, and he has like arms and legs that are like dangling, which is really cool. And then the other one is just a collage of like Scooby's dog tag, Scooby's head, the mystery machine all over it. It's pretty cool. In terms of Scooby-Doo news this week, if you're listening to this episode on the day it comes out, tomorrow, which is July 14th, they're releasing the Scooby-Doo Forever stamps from the United States Postal Service that we mentioned in an episode sometime in the past. So if you are interested in getting those will become available. I'll definitely be getting my fair share of them.
I'm probably going to get some too.
Yeah. I want to get like an abundance of them. So like when we send out like the Planispheric Disc stickers or other content to our listeners, like we can put that Scooby-Doo stamp on it. Yeah. It'd be so cool.
Well, and I'm a fan of the Forever stamp because stamp prices are constantly going up.
Yes.
And Forever stamps are great.
Yeah. So we'll definitely be getting my hands on those, and you should too. Well, that's all the Scooby-Doo news we have for today. If you want to talk about this episode of the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo further with us, you can contact us on Twitter.
You can reach us at Groovy Scoobcast.
And you can also find us on Do Central on both Tumblr and Instagram at Do Central.
And if you're not really into social media at all, you can always email us at thatgroovyscoobcast@gmail.com.
Keep that saved because next episode, we're going to be announcing a really cool prize that we're going to be giving away to one of our listeners at the end of this podcast season.
So before we leave you, we are going to randomly generate the next episode.
This episode will be coming from a pup named Scooby-Doo. I'm really excited to move into this series because this is one of the first series that I actually really watched as a kid, like on regular television.
Yeah.
Like I didn't need to go out and buy a DVD set to watch this one because it was already on Cartoon Network at the time.
This is where we're catching up with ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's exciting because I haven't watched it since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I remember very fun things.
So you're going to have a nostalgia trip.
Yeah. I'm going to finally hit that.
We need to make sure, though, that, like, I definitely want to try and keep the nostalgia glasses off, though, so that we can look at these objectively like we have in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just going to be a really interesting rewatching of these episodes. Well, Shannon, without further ado, hit the randomizer.
And we are going to be watching The Babysitter from Beyond.
All right. Let's see what Scoobypedia has to say about this episode. The gang takes Shaggy's baby sister, Shuggy, to the babysitter, but the babysitter's house turns out to be the old lair of a master criminal who just escaped jail.
That sounds kind of terrifying.
Huh. I'm glad that we're actually going to have, like, an introduction to Shaggy's sister, like we've mentioned in the past. I'm interested to see where this goes. I maybe saw this episode once.
Yeah.
Maybe. It sounds kind of familiar, but we'll see. If you want to watch this episode before we review it, you can watch it in a variety of ways. You can find this episode on the complete first season of A Pup Named Scooby-Doo DVD set, or the volume 2 of A Pup Named Scooby-Doo DVD set from 2005. You can also find this episode on iTunes, Amazon, and the free Scooby-Doo Microsoft app.
We hope you enjoyed everything we talked about today. Thanks for joining us again for that Groovy Scoobcast.
Come back next week for a Scooby snack-filled time. Bye, guys.
Bye.